So hello, good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Welcome to this edition of Soccer Hub Talks. My name is Ricardo Albeida. I'm the CEO and founder of Soccer Hub. As many of you already know, Soccer Hub is an online education platform. We deliver online education for coaches, analysts, scouts. Well, just visit us and get to know a bit better what we do on a day-to-day basis. So today we are here with Kai Stopka. We will discuss the subject reaching the full potential. Kai is talking with us from Australia. So thank you very much, Kai, for being here with us. Don't forget that this is a live event, so we'll be able to ask some questions. Just introduce it on a chat box that Nuno will select some to introduce. So once again, Kai, thank you very much. Nuno, thank you very much also. We will go back to our conversation in just a few seconds. Hello, guys. Good afternoon. Good evening for you, Kai.
Thank you. Good to be here.
Hello, so, Nuno, the panel is yours. See you in a bit. Bye-bye.
Thank you so much. Hello, everyone. Thank you for being with us once again. And thank you, Kai, for being here also and to talk a bit about yourself and also about your company. So let's start a bit. If you can tell us a bit about yourself, your background as a player, because I believe you've been a player, if I'm correct, in Germany also and in Spain. So if you can start to tell us a bit more about that, it will be great.
Yeah, 100%. So guys, my story is a bit weird. I grew up in Australia, playing in a normal school, in a normal town in Australia. And at 11 years old, I moved to Europe and I played for 4 years in Spain, 1 year in Germany. So my journey's been a bit different. I focused a lot as a kid, doing extra work, and I always loved football. Football was my thing. And so at 11 years old, my family and I decided, look, it's time. You've reached the top here in Australia. You can't really go much higher. So how do we take your game to the next level? And that's when, the thing about Europe came up. And that was the process of getting to Europe is a whole nother story.
Okay, that's great. And so as you, this is more a conversation than an interview, as you know. So you moved to Europe strictly to play football, or just for other reasons?
No, strictly for football. Oh, sorry.
Okay.
Yep.
So
I realized that at that young age that this is what I wanted to do. Football was my thing. School was not my thing. I was good at school, passed everything, but still decided no, I want to kick balls around for a living. So yeah, that was my life. I went to Europe purely to play football. I finished school in Europe as well. Well, most of my schooling in Europe. And so I went to Spain the first couple of years.
Okay, it's interesting. So can you share with us why Spain? Because obviously if I can say this, the obvious choice will be probably the UK, because football there, it's many people say it's the best league in the world. Also do the language. So why Spain? Was there any particular decision on that?
Yeah, I think, and I think this is very important for the players watching to realize is understand what type of player you are. I from a young age realized I was small, very, very small, and but I was technical and I was a midfielder. So I thought, okay, I actually went to Spain for a training session for a couple of months just to test it out when I was about 10. But I realized that the Spanish style suited me the most. So that's that's where I ended up. And I'm thankful I did, to be honest, for a young player.
Yeah, that's a very clever decision, and actually touched a very important point. Is like to understand the type of player that you are, and where you can be more suitable. And so in one way you have the language barrier, but on the other way, inside the pitch, you are more free to actually to play your football, So that was great. And next it came Germany. Okay, that also German is a very complicated language also. So how did you find, and what were the main differences and why Germany, and what were the main differences that you found between Spain and German football?
I reached 16 or 15 and a half, 16 in Spain. I'd spent 4 years there. I played twice in the youth La Liga, in that, against Barcelona, Espanyol, great teams. But I got to that age where I was like, okay, now I need to add that more, we say in Australia, mongrel, that little bit more power to my game. I was great. I was totally both footed, great on the ball, score goals. That was my thing. I was goal scoring midfielder, but when it came to defending and maybe tackling, that wasn't my strong point. And I always, my whole life, my dad, was great with me as a kid. He always tried to push me out of my comfort zone. And that's something now with what I do now. I encourage every player push, seek uncomfortable situations. And so for me going to Germany with, the whole, thing of Germany, that was an uncomfortable situation. And it was something that was either going to take me to a whole new level or, punish me or be hard, really super hard. So, yeah.
So did you think, were you thinking also at the time that you reached like your technical peak, and you also want to join the physical part of football? The pace is it's much the football there, the pace is much higher. Were you thinking about that also, joining both parts to be a more complete player? Also was important in your decision?
100%. I think Spain for a young kid is great. Like the culture, they're very welcoming. I think for someone going overseas at a young age, Spain's a great country because it allows you to integrate with that overseas life. Maybe without your family, they're great people. They'll take under their wing. And just touching on what you just said, though, when I got to about 16, I hit like a wall because I had coaches and players, and every year I was in Spain, I was going up to a better team in the highest league, better team. But at 16, I hit a wall, and I was like, yeah, I need to add something to my game. Whereas most players probably think, nah, I'm fine, I'll stay here. I was like, okay, every coach tells me the same thing. You're great on the ball, 2-footed, you can score goals, you change games, but you need to go to the gym, or you need to be more angry when you play. Like for me, I was so nice on the field, but I also had that technical side that I could lean on and go, well, I scored 2 goals, I don't need that. But I came to the realization that if I was going to be a pro footballers are fast, strong, and aggressive. They're not only just good on the ball, can change games. They have to be on the other side. So that decision to move was purely to be a more complete player, as you said.
Yeah, that's a great, and also shows obviously that you've been investing in your career and in a very clever way, and also going out from your comfort zone. That's something that is not very usual, especially because you came from very far, and like we said, to countries that the languages are different, the lifestyle is completely different. And it's interesting because like you said, you felt that you were already at your peak in Australia, then in Spain, and then you moved to Germany, so to become that complete player. Also, do you think that the case, you said you were scoring goals in Spain and you were playing very well, do you think also about the football there is more space and everything, so in terms of the tactical part of the game, you also improved more in Germany?
Yeah, I think, to be honest, and this might be very biased opinion, I think Spanish La Liga is the best league in the world by far. I think you look at I think everyone raves about the Premier League, but in my opinion, and having seen real football like culture, I don't think you can get better than Spain, to be honest. Even in the pro levels, like you look at a lot of the mid-table to bottom table Premier League sides, and they play Spanish teams in the Champions League, and there's always a lot of upsets, and people still see it as an upset. But to be honest, tactically in Spain, they just you watch a Premier League game, you watch a La Liga game. In the Premier League game, you've got really fast, strong score. You see great goals in the Premier League. Powerful players. It's exciting to watch. Then you watch a La Liga game, and it's more tactical movement off the ball. So it doesn't look as fast or as powerful. But the thing is, most of the time, and I would say most of the time, you put a Premier League side against a La Liga side, most of the time, second half, La Liga teams will absolutely dominate the Premier League side. not because they're not running as much or they're slower, but because they've discovered and they've found out that they don't necessarily need to do that, and they the players without the ball make the space, and then the ball moves very, very comfortably. So for me though, as an individual, moving to Germany was, as I said, I think tactically it was similar, but moving to Germany for me was that extra little part of my game to add that bit of explosiveness, and I got it. So it was a successful time to go there.
Yeah, that's great, and thanks for sharing your opinion. And in terms of, for example, like the Premier League, I agree completely. And we had a match yesterday, and we could see like Chelsea, that is a top team, against Villarreal, and they've been struggling, And if you compare the players individually, of course, Chelsea have a much better squad. But like you said, possibly in Spain they play in a more clever way, if we can say that in that way. And okay, and of course they play with the players that they have, but they try to take all the potential from them, and they always fight. The same thing also in Germany, that also happened. And thank you for sharing that story. It's great. So obviously now you are back in Australia. Can you tell us a bit more about it, and also how it came, the idea to create Nextlevel Soccer, and also why?
100%. Now this was a moment, was probably the best and the worst moment of my life. I had this season in the under-17 Bundesliga in Spain, and came to the end of the year, and I made a promise to my mum, which was the worst promise I ever made, that if school didn't go well, because I moved from Spain to Germany, and if school didn't go well, not being able to speak that language, I was in a German school in year 11, that if it didn't go well, I'd come back. So got to the last exam at the end of the year, and I failed by 1 point, literally 1 point in the last exam, and so I failed school. I had no other choice, but I promised my mum, look, I'll come back and finish school, and then I'll go back overseas. So 4 weeks to go. My last week in Germany, we beat Schalke 2-1, and there's a whole story behind that, because I was at Schalke for a little bit. And so there was a story behind it. But it was a great last game. They only had 2 or 3 games to go. I missed out on the last game against Borussia Dortmund, which was, very sad, but came back to Australia, had the plan to finish school and go back to Europe. I was actually, now you mentioned that, I was actually planning on going back to Villarreal in Spain. So that was my big goal. Came back to Australia. I was pumped, and I was actually, I thought I'd be angry when I got back, sad, but I got back and I was, determined. I was hungry. I was excited to go to that next step again. And that would, if I got into Villarreal at 17, 18, that was, that was the moment, that was my chance. It was the big thing that would have been the thing. So came back, and within 2 months, actually, I got caught in an accident. I was training a lot. I was doing 2-3 sessions a day, every day, maybe half a day off. Maybe I'd do 1 session a week, and that was my day off. I was doing way too much gym work, sprints, hill runs, on-field training, and then weights at home in the garage. And, I realized, I didn't realize, I thought I was Superman. I could keep going. And, when you do that much work in the gym or that much training, it gets to a point where you don't actually feel the pain. You don't actually feel the tiredness. You can just keep going. And I had this inner drive. I was like, there's this one trial, this one moment that's gonna change my life. That one thing. I've worked my whole, sacrificed my whole youth life away from my family for that one thing, working super hard. What happened was, and this was me being stupid, and maybe no one said anything to me, I started to, break down, and my body, my muscles, my tendons started to get really soft, and not be able to, maybe if I had 2 weeks off, I would have been fine, and we wouldn't be sitting here right now. But I kept going. Anyway, was playing one day, bad tackle, boom, and I was like, oh, my back, my back's a little bit sore. This was only 4 or 5 months away from going to Spain, but I was like, sorry, I'll keep training, it'll go away. And didn't go away. And then next game, another tackle. That was it. That was the end of it. And I had two fractures in my spine. I had internal bruising, bleeding of the back between the bones. I had everything that you could think of. And I didn't know it was bad when I did it, but I had an MRI, discovered all that. And I remember asking the guy in the hospital, how long until I could play again? He said 12 months. So I cried for days and days, and I spent probably 3 months in bed, paralyzed, not being able to walk. I haven't really talked about this much, but in bed, not being able to walk, and in my head, staring at a ceiling, for 24 hours a day, moving hurt, even laying in a bed hurt. So I went from, playing in the biggest league in Europe, in the Bundesliga at that stage, with players that right now today are playing on TV and earning millions of dollars, and I was back in this bed, paralyzed. So the next sort of 3 to 6 months were just probably the lowest moments of my life. I had very bad thoughts in my head. I had to get a job in a kitchen to just give me something to do, purpose. Again, I had no purpose. And in this kitchen, I was wearing a full brace, like a metal and plastic brace on my back, so I could stand up, and so I could actually walk and cut vegetables to get $15 an hour, Australian dollars, and pay for a bit of rent, pay for some food. And I remember in that kitchen, I was in my head for 8 hours a day, cutting these vegetables and just thinking about my journey. And a lot of times I would, be crying in the kitchen, and I would just blame it on the onion, I don't think anyone can, you can't really explain the pain that someone goes through. And that was my rock bottom moment, because it felt like everything I worked for my whole life that was it, that was done. And I had no school. Like I finished my school, but I dropped out of year 12 because I was doing this football thing, and I was going to go back to Europe. And that was, I had no plan B. So I was lost. And for 12 months I was lost. And so that's how we got to there. Do you want me to explain how Nextlevel started now?
Yeah, please. Yeah. And thanks for sharing that story. It's a hard story, but also it's incredible story, like Joshua here is saying. And it's always nice also to share, this kind of stories can happen to anyone. And it's also a lesson about the training that you've been saying, like training too much. But that's a different story. Maybe we could tell a bit later on. We can talk about it. Yeah. If you can, please go on. Yeah.
So I have a really close friend here in Australia who was my mentor. His name's Danny Tiato. Danny played for Manchester City for many years, and he was very similar to me. He went through a lot of hard stuff when he was a kid. He he didn't make any state teams. He didn't make any good teams. And then when he reached an age, he got one chance. He got into a first team and went to Europe, Italy, and played professionally in England, and ended up at Manchester City. So he was a mentor for me. And then during that time, I'm quite a happy person. I don't let people see my tough moments, but I think he could tell sort of, I was going through a bit of a tough time. And he sort of rang me one day and he said, look, I need you to send me that program of drills that you did as a kid, and I want to give it to my son to do. And this was the worst moment of my life. I'm depressed. I don't want to think about football. I said, whatever, here you go. Now, this program, just a side note, this program was something I did in Australia, but to get me to a level where I was good enough to go to Spain, get my foot in the door, and then from there, scrap and get every chance I could to keep moving up. So anyway, I didn't realize that at the time that program had impacted my life so much. And when I gave it to him, I went back to my miserable, depressive state in the kitchen. And months went by, 2-3 months, and I started getting these random phone calls, and I'm thinking it's like a call center or something. And I'm like, don't answer it. And, one after the other. And anyway, and then I started seeing the same number calling me a couple of times. So one day I picked one up, and it's this mum. And she said on the phone, she's pretty much, in tears. And she's like, hey, you finally answered my call. Danny Tiato is the coach of my son's team now. Can you please send me that program of drills? His son he's gone to a whole new level, and I can't believe it. I need that for my son. And I was sitting there thinking, there's no way. I haven't even spoken to Danny for a couple of months. Like, I don't understand this. And I said, yeah, no problem. I sent it to her, and that was it. And I didn't think anything else of it. And then I started getting 3, 4, 5 phone calls like this. And I'm like, okay, there's something here now. There's this thing that I've got that it can impact a lot of lives. So it sort of gave me just a little bit of happiness in my life. And
Yeah.
that was the only thing that was bringing me happiness. So to hear other people, achieving good things. So I stuck with that, and I met with another close friend of mine who is a famous entrepreneur here in Australia, has done a lot of online education courses.
Okay.
And one thing led to another. I had a meeting with him, and again, walking into his office with the back brace under my shirt, so he didn't know I was,
Okay.
in
Yeah.
that place.
Yeah.
And sat down, and he said, look, your dad's told me how you are mentally. You're not good. I need to, you've got this skill. How can we create something out of this skill? And he said, he's told me the stories about all the parents that keep ringing you. What can we do with this? And I was like, I have no idea. You need to help me. Like, I don't know what to do with it. I just know I've got something here that works.
Yeah.
And I've had parents physically, it takes a lot for someone to actually call you and go, this works, right? So
Yeah.
anyway, we spent a year together, and I'll never forget this guy. We're still very close today, and we've got some exciting things coming together, but I will never forget this man. And he helped me build this course that is now Nextlevel Soccer, and changing hundreds of lives around the world each week. And I'm back playing now. I've been back for 3 months,
Okay.
maybe a little bit longer than that, maybe 6 months. And I've been to a few places playing now. Got a few calls from different places. So now I'm continuing with my own career. I think COVID-19 maybe helped me a little bit because
Okay.
the world sort of stopped while I
Yeah.
was injured. So my career is by no means over, but it's just a joy that now, I get Instagram messages every day of, look at, this is what I did today. This is my new result, and the great part about the program is it's all about repetition. So, if you're doing thousands and thousands of touches more than your teammates every single week, you're going to get better. It's impossible not to. And that's why I have so many happy mums and dads and people saying, look what I did in 1 week. In 3 sessions, I got this much better. And, that's the thing that gets players addicted to football. It's not the scoring goals. Like, the scoring goals part wears off. It's the
Yeah.
fact that they can feel and see on a video their improvements over 1 week, a month, 6 months. And so that's pretty much how that happened.
That's very interesting, and thank you for sharing that amazing story. And now you can join both things that you like. You can help other people to improve, and young kids, and you can also play. And it's great to hear that you are improving also your health condition, and what you said about the repetitions, that's very important. Not only, this is my opinion, obviously, not only because you get better, obviously, but you also get other things like concentration, for example. You get the passion for the game, because in these days, the kids have loads of things to do, many options, many choices. They feel a bit lost, and if you guide them, they will feel that passion inside. And to become a top player, you need to feel the passion for the game. It's not only about training. So I would like also to ask you, you mentioned before that you've been training so much, too much actually, and but it was more on the physical side. Do you think that the players, possibly because of, we have a role model, there are 2 role models in the world more, that is Messi and Ronaldo, obviously, and one is very popular because Ronaldo, because he works a lot, his physical side. Do you think also, if someone doesn't understand so much, it can happen the same that happened to you? So you are not balanced between training with the ball, training actually your skills, but only be focused on the physical side. Do you think that can happen also?
100%. Like, I've seen people I know personally, and again, this is no medical advice, but
Yeah.
people leaning a lot to doing a lot of leg weights, a lot of even upper body weights, heavy stuff, even cycling. I've seen one person in particular do a lot of start doing a lot of bike riding because they think, wow, I'm getting more powerful, but it's actually making them slower. it did,
Yeah.
and their career ended because they just became too slow, too
Yeah.
big, and so yes, I talk about this in the course on Next Levels. If you want to come back from an injury, I would
Yeah.
stay, do minimal cycling. I think cycling is good to get your warm up and stuff like that. And again, this is no expert advice, but if you're wanting to do more recovery work, I would look at pool stuff, like in the pool. Walking is good, but long, extended periods of time doing a lot of leg work, and heavy stuff is never good, I don't think, for a footballer.
Yeah, of course. And also, I don't know if you do that on your courses, obviously, but it also depends on the position that you play on the field. Like for example, if it's a winger, if you want him to be fast, there are some muscles possibly you don't want to train them so much because it make them slower. If you are a striker, it's different. So every position is a different kind of training, also different kind of approach on the physical side. That's also important. Just we have here a question, but before that, I would just like to ask you, when you've been talking, this is just a curiosity, because you've been obviously abroad and in Europe, at that time, were you under the radar of the national team, Australian national team, or not? How it works?
There is a story behind that. I don't know if I'm
Okay.
allowed to talk about it.
Okay. No, if you are
Yeah,
not.
I think I was.
Okay.
Yeah, I think for people inside of Australia, they would understand the story a lot. But I think I might not tell the story just
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
I don't want to get into too much trouble. But there definitely was a situation when I was at Schalke with the national team, and yeah, it didn't go well because anyway, I won't say too much. If anyone's
Yeah.
interested in learning that story, reach out to me personally.
Yeah.
But I've just got to be a little bit careful because I don't want to, talk badly about my own country. But
Yeah, of course.
so.
Yeah, I know what you mean, and we are also here not to talk about those things. It was just a curiosity, but we'll approach in a bit more the Australian football in general. So we have here a question from Rene and Luis Soto that says that research shows that critical ages where most overuse problems occur are done between the ages of 9 and 12, the 9 to 12. From your experience, what will prevent this it from happening?
Yeah, I think from that ages, players start to get Osgood slatters, like in your knees. They get the growing bump in the knee. I had that while I was in Spain. People get back issues, soreness, but I think a lot of that is to do with growing as well. When from 9 to 12, that critical growing age, I'd say even for boys, 13, 14, 15, I would be very careful with what the amount of weights you're doing, the amount, as you said, it does occur more in that age, simply because the bones, and I only know this because I went through the injury, but through those phases when you're growing, your bones and everything around it that makes something strong actually are weak because it's growing and it's stretching, right? So it's stretching. So if something's stretching and you're putting a lot of load on it and it's not fully formed, it's just stretching out and it's not, everything around it hasn't made that strong, that's when the problems come. And that's why I think from 11 to 13, 14, 9 to 13 or 14, players have, tough times, growing pains, because those things around it are weaker and it takes less exercise to make that sore. So if you're having growing pain, I wouldn't worry too much about it. I had a lot of it. Treat it how you can. Ice is great. A lot of people say push through the pain. If it gets really bad, you have to stop, then stop. But I think growing pain, that's all it is. It's not to get too worried about that. I think, does that answer the question, do you think?
Yeah, I think it answers perfectly. Thank you for the answer, and thank you also for the question for René and Luis Soto. And so, do you think also that in terms of the work that the players do you think that at a certain age or until a certain age, the players should be focused, or in this case, the coaches, to put the player like to play more with the ball, to enjoy the game, and not so much on the physical side, and only to start to train more deeply that physical part from a certain age? Do you think that makes sense or not so much?
100%, 100%. I always go with caution. I think strength and conditioning work is really
Yeah,
good. I think a great balance. You need to find a balance. I would always, as a younger player, I would always urge you to master your technique. If you can,
yeah,
at that age, master the technique, it's only going to carry through, because it's like a language. When you're young, you learn languages really quickly because your brain's
yeah,
younger and fresher, right? Well, same with football. If you can get the technique down pat early, you might not have to do as much work on your technique later because it's
yeah,
already programmed in your mind. So I think as a young player, that's the most important, is to master your technique. Of course, I would always try and do some form of, abdominal work.
yeah,
Ab strength is important. Glute strength, if you have strong glutes, it translates into all the other parts of your body. But definitely for young players, master that technical side, master it.
yeah. So you work on the core of the body, yeah, and also because, like you said, and we absorb more information and we learn better when we are younger. And I believe it's much easier to work your technique when you are young than if you work the technique when you are older. Maybe you cannot make it anymore. It's not something that you are able. And the physical side, the physical part, you can always train and you can always adapt. And you are more aware also about the injuries that you can get. You get advices, and that's a more sensible part. And you are the example of it. So in terms of the Australian, let's talk a bit about Australian soccer at the moment. How do you see it today, in today, and also in the future? What do you think is still needs to be done?
100%. As far as if you're a player that's looking to really push, or give yourself the best chance coming from Australia
Yeah,
right now, and this is not me saying it, this is general knowledge. Right now, any age after 13, every year that you stay in Australia after 13, the chances of you making it get less and less and less. I
okay,
think, I don't know the exact stat of every player that makes it compared to everyone that doesn't, but that
yeah,
is a tiny percentage of everyone makes it that doesn't. Every year that you stay in Australia after that age, for me, the percentage gets less and less and less, and you want to make sure that percentage stays as high as possible, because it is so small. So um, for me, this is the exact roadmap for a player coming from Australia, or even, I know that US system is much better than Australia, but even if you want to go from the US to Europe as well, I'd say as a young kid, focus purely on mastering the technique. In Australia, especially, I think up to the age of 11, 10, 11, we're very similar to Europe. Very, very similar, because at that age, there's only so much you can teach a player, about tactics and where to go on a field. There's only so much you can
yeah,
teach. So until that age of around 11, 12, it's very similar. But what happens is when you get to 13, 14, 15, in Spain especially, they're starting to do, great formational play, movement off the ball, third, like a lot of different runs, different strategies. They don't do that in Australia, so that's where you're going to
yeah,
fall behind. So my exact roadmap and what did it for me, because when I went to Spain, guys, and this is, my journey might sound great, whatever, but when I went to Spain, I wasn't anywhere near the level. Technically, I had a trial at Espanyol, and they told me technically you're probably better than what we've got.
yeah,
Goal scoring wise, we don't have a player that can score as many goals as you. Da 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 da. All this stuff, personal stuff. You're probably one of the best players we got. But, well, one, you don't speak the language. That wasn't a big issue, but you don't speak the language. Two, tactically and defensively, you're not nowhere near the level. And we can't have a player that can do one thing but not the other at a
yeah,
professional club like this. So what that means, guys, is, for everyone watching that, obviously watching something like this, you want it, right? So master that technique side, that personal stuff, because no matter if you go at 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, you go to a country like Spain or Germany, or even the UK, tactically, you're not going to be at the level. It's impossible,
yeah,
because in this country, we don't have the level of whatever it is to get you to that spot where you're good enough to be at a
yeah,
professional level in Europe. So the only chance you've got, and the only chance I had, was to make sure I was two-footed, I was comfortable on the ball, I was confident on the ball. When I got to Spain in my first year, this is like a light bulb moment for a lot of people. When I got to Spain in my first year, I I didn't go to Espanyol. I went to a second tier team in the second division, or even the third division. It's called something different in Spain, but third division I was in. And I only got in there because I was technically great, right? That was a step one. What I had to do when I got in there was learn the tactics and learn the tactics as well and how to defend so that I could progress. And something that was really great for me and move the needle was the fact that once I learned that, because I was so good at the other stuff, because I trained and worked so hard at it, now all of a sudden I'm playing in the best teams in the country. And it's like, oh, well, where did that come from? And the players in my old team saying to me, I played with you. How are you playing at the top league now? Like, it's because once I learned the tactical side, once I learned how to defend for Spain, then all that other stuff came in handy, and it was just like, that was the difference. So yeah.
That's very interesting, and that's in a very clever way that you do the things. And you can see many players that come from countries where football, it's the case of Australia, where soccer is not the main sport, and maybe they struggle, or they don't want to improve, or they think they are not good enough, but you always saw the bright side of the situation. You always thought, well, I'm good at this, I can improve at that. And especially, I don't know if it makes sense for you, but I don't believe there are many Australian players in youth teams in Spain. So probably you thought, well, if I make it, it will be for the sky. I'm a scout, so that's something that comes up, and you see a player that is from Australia is not so usual, so you keep someone who's going to watch you, to see how you are doing it, because that brings you also to the national team if you are doing well. So it's a great thing, I tell you, because there are some players in Portugal also from New Zealand, from Australia, and it's always nice because you bring other things, you bring other stuff many times from other sports, things that the players over here don't have. Is the same if it goes a Portuguese or a Spanish player to play in Australia. They are under the spotlights in somehow, because it's not so common. And actually, I think we'll have an interview with him. I already spoke to him a few times. Is Nuno that plays there for Melbourne City. They were champions this year. And so he was starting to play. He played for Sporting Lisbon youth teams many years. So he's over there. So that's the thing, the world is like that in these days. So that's interesting. And to talk about in terms of the worldwide, so the service that you guys offer, it's only for Australian players or also worldwide? It's a worldwide service.
Yeah, 100%. So when I created this program back in the the really low point of my life, I literally, all I did, I sat at a desk, I got a pen and paper, and I mapped out in my head my journey and how I went from Australia, maybe a difficult country to come out of, and how I did that. And I broke the course up into bite-sized pizzas so that any player, no matter if you're from England, US, Australia, wherever you're from, New Zealand, you can consume it and apply it and do exactly what I did. So the first part of the course is all about knowledge. So it's about 30 videos, 5 to 6 minute videos, bite-sized stuff, really easy to learn and consume, of my journey, step by step, how I went from a tiny town in the middle of nowhere in Australia, playing in some of the biggest youth leagues in the world, how I did that coming from a disadvantaged football country, what I did at home, some of my biggest failures as a kid, my biggest successes, my hurdles, and how I overcame them. This part, the first part of the course, is all about preventing mistakes. In football, some of the players that make it aren't the ones that are the best. They're the ones that make the less mistakes and the most consistent, right? Because I know for me, when I make a mistake, whether it's a big one or a small one, I'm thinking about it for a while afterwards.
Yeah.
So if we can reduce those errors you make, you're going to be more successful. So that's the first part. And the second part is all the training programs. So at home, what are you doing at home to get to a level where you're good enough to get out of a country, maybe a more difficult country to play in, and get to somewhere that's going to give you the best chance, So that's what I said it before about the light bulb moment. It's mastering the first early stages of your football, mastering that, and giving yourself a chance. Now, this program is never going to make you a professional footballer, because it's,
Yeah.
there's so many aspects to a professional footballer. But what this will do for any player, it doesn't matter who you are, what this will do for you is get your foot in the door in Europe. If it's my old saying is, what happens when you combine hard work with the right tool, you get success.
Yeah.
So as I said before, repetition, everyone gets the results, doesn't matter where
Yeah.
you're from. And so my goal is to get players' foots in the door. Tactically,
Yeah.
defensively, they're not going to be there. We've accepted
Yeah.
that as a part of our
Yeah.
country, and we go,
Okay.
but I still did it, and I played a lot higher than players that grew up in Spain. So
Yeah. Yeah.
it's possible, and you just have to follow the steps. There's a lot of these programs coming out now, which are amazing. People have gone and made the mistakes, and now they're giving them to people that are just coming through. So that's what that is. That's the second part, full mapped out 3-level program, beginner, intermediate, advanced, what to do at home, in your garage, in your backyard. And then the third part, I'm sitting there when I'm creating this and I'm like, I was lucky, I did this work, I learnt from the best mentors, and then I went, oh crap, people don't have the contacts that I did. So now I give everyone my contacts. I've got 15 countries of my personal contacts on the course. So you get a full pathway. You get all the knowledge that I learnt, and we've got speakers on the course from, Craig Johnson that played at Liverpool, Danny Tiago at Man City. We've got the ex-FC Barcelona Masia director, who I'm going to put you in contact with, because you have to interview this guy. He's unbelievable.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, no problem. He's a great mentor of mine now, and he was a part of Messi's journey when Messi was very young. So unbelievable interview, that one. And then we have 10, 12 other bonus interviews inside the program, inside the course. And so that's basically a rundown of exactly what it is. And to be honest, we've been live for 3 months, and it's a delight to wake up every day, because I see so many results, and we have case studies on the course of players that have done it, so you can see their results after 30 days, 3 months, 6 months, and 12 months. The boy that's been doing it for over 12 months now has an opportunity in Holland, and that opportunity came from speaking to the contact inside the course, grabbing an email, writing to them, and from there getting a club offer. So
That's brilliant. I'll say that. Do you think it's like a kind of, you are replacing the street football that used to be played, like 20 years ago? So you are somehow, replicating that part that was very important. The most skillful players that you could see. I would say the better example is Ronaldinho, for example. I don't know if you can see a Ronaldinho in the next few years, but it's something that he was doing by repetition, because he didn't have other options of what to do. It was all about to be with the ball and all the time. So you think, because football, like we know, the players in these days are pretty much the same. So you think in somehow that you also bring that part to the kids these days, so they can train home. They, of course, they are guided, but they can have that part, and the improvising also. When it gets to the match, they already have better techniques, so allows them to improvise and to think quicker, because they obviously, if you do repetition, like you said, when it gets to the match, you are not so worried with your technique, so your brain is going to work in much quicker. You take a quicker decision, and that's also important. Do you think it's also, you can say it's a bit like that?
100%. I think I love relating it back to learning a new language. You're younger, it's easier. Everything's easier when you're younger. To learn a new language, to understand problems, to everything, school's easier when you're younger, So 100%. I think, and relating back to that language subject, football is like learning a language. You master the language. I don't need to think when I speak English, because I just speak it, right? And if you're doing thousands and thousands of touches, more than the teammates or your competitors every week, and you do that consistently for months and years, it's going to become, football becomes easy, and that's when you need to move up. And that's what football is about, getting to that level, realizing you're at that level, and going to the next place to get you to a new level. And so,
Okay. And if you make a program for a guy with 39 years old, can make it professional, just send it to me, please.
Oh, I might have to get to that age myself first, but yeah,
Yeah,
no.
but yeah, just try. Yeah, I think I still make it. So we are almost finishing. Can you see? Let's talk a bit more about just Australian football in general. It's not from your generation, but I remember players like Mark Viduka, like Bresciano, like Eric Ewell, a great squad that you guys had. It was fantastic to follow. And how do you see in these days the Australian football in general? And can you see in the next few decades the national team, Australian national team, to be able to fight for trophies among the other nations that are currently, of course, on a higher level? Do you think that's possible?
Okay, so there's very mixed opinions about this subject here in
Okay.
Australia. I'm going to speak from what I've seen as a youth
Yeah.
player in Australia now.
Yeah.
I think that era of Mark Viduka and Bresciano and Cahill and all those guys
Schwarzer, the goalkeeper. Yeah, Mark
was
Schwarzer. Yeah.
you look at those guys, right? Most of those, well, let's say 3/4 of those guys were in Europe, in
Yeah.
England, in wherever. So I don't even count those as they're Australian, but they're
Okay.
not getting Australian football, right? So they
Okay.
made it because they were playing in such a high environment. They were sacrificing being away from their families, so they put more energy in it, and they got there, right? They
So
made
it's
it.
so sorry to interrupt. It was a bit like you. They went abroad in a young age, and they made it because of that. Yeah.
That's some of them. That's some of them.
Okay.
So 100%, right? So that's not even coming from Australian football, right? So
Okay.
that's out of the question. Coming back to you though, the only other people, and I forget who exactly they were, but actually my dad played against Viduka and a couple of those guys when he was young in the youth league. But the only reason that those extra players got there and actually made it is because they were playing first team or training in the senior team at 14, 15, 16. So that's the only reason they got there. They develop much quicker. It's either the two options: they go to Europe, they get that whole new level of training, or they stay in Australia, but they're playing with seniors.
Yeah.
Now in Australia, you don't see that, and that's a hard thing because it's we either need to do one or two things. We need to get really, really good with our junior programs and provide a really, really good pathway. Which for me right now, as a player 18 in this situation, there's not really that. There isn't that. The A League, and understandably looks to bring people from Europe because it gathers more audience, right, of
Yeah.
people to watch the league. So I understand that, but unless you're in a senior environment young in Australia, it's going to be very hard. So and to get into a senior environment, even if you're good and good enough, sometimes you won't even get put there because maybe the coach isn't at that level to see your talent or doesn't want you as a player. He wants a bigger player, or he doesn't want the
Yeah.
big player, he wants the small. So it comes, if you're going to stay in this country, it comes a lot down to the coach you've got, if they're going to help you through to a senior environment young. And if you don't have that, it doesn't mean you're not good enough. It just means that, we're not advanced enough in this country to do that and to create professional quality footballers. I mean, I've got to say that, but also look at the Ollie Roos in the Olympics, right? We
Yeah.
did honestly really, really well. We beat Argentina. I think in our last game against Egypt, I think we could have done a lot better. And I think we could have won that game with this quality we had in the lineup. But you look at all those players, and I've played with some of them now. They're all playing A-League, and they're all young. They're all 20, 19, 21, 22. I don't think
Yeah.
there was a 19-year-old in there, but these types of players were training seniors at a young age. And I think some people in some clubs, A-League clubs, are starting to realize that, there's a difference between winning a league now and creating a national team for the next 5 years.
Yeah.
So a lot of those players, Gonru is a great player. Metcalf's a great example. They're training in the seniors young, and that's why they are where they are today. There's nothing else to it.
Yeah. So I'll say it's a bit tricky. So in one hand, you have the part of the league that you want to get a better league, more competitive league, but that doesn't allow young players to train with the seniors. So what makes the national team be weaker? If I understood right, it's pretty much that is happening. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. So to finish, if you had to choose only one aspect that could make the difference for it, for to Australia to get to the next level, what would it be?
One attribute in your game
Yeah.
to get out of Australia, or
No, one aspect that you could change in Australian football that could make it easier for Australian players to reach a higher level.
oh, okay. That's a big question, but I've got my answer.
Okay.
And it's not what a lot of people like to hear. But I
Yeah.
think if you're going to change one thing, there's a few things you can change. But if you're going to change one thing, it's getting the Vidukas, it's getting the ex-pros, the Brescianos, the Danny Tiados, those guys, putting them at the top.
Yeah.
That's if there's one thing, because there's a lot of things underneath and in the middle you can change. But to change and have a big change, we need to get the people that actually took us to a quarterfinal in the World Cup to change football, and they can. Now, okay, I don't know what the response is going to be from this answer because it's very conflicted. There's a lot of hatred around this topic. But if they're going to change one thing, why not do it to the people and put it in the hands of the people that actually were the people that changed football in this country and got us to a World Cup after so many decades? That's the one thing that would change it. Whether they want to, those bunch of guys want to be a part of that, want to do it, I don't know. But I think that's the best chance we got. So
yeah, thank you so much for the answer. It's brilliant because I was almost asking you that question, before, if you think it was important also to bring those players, those references, also for the young kids to understand that it's possible to make it. If they made it like several years ago, of course the things improve and it's possible to make it. So thank you so much, Kai, for sharing with us your story, your amazing story. Also, guys, please visit if you want to leave where they can find you, where they can find Next Level Soccer. If you want just to say to people where to find it, and
yeah, 100%. So you can go to our website, Nextlevel Soccer, all one word, Next without the T, so NEX Level Soccer, all one word.com. That's our website. That's our landing page. You can claim your free 25-minute online video training where I explain how I went from a small town in Australia, break it down, and went to the biggest leagues in Europe. I also break down what Next Level Soccer is all about, why it's so game changing and is impacting so many lives. Alternatively, if you do have Instagram or Facebook, let's stick to Instagram. You can actually follow us at Instagram at Next Level Soccer. Again, all one word on Instagram. Without a T, remember, that gets a few people, but Next Level Soccer, and send me a message, send me a DM. Like, I get a lot every day, but that's the best way for us to communicate directly.
Yeah, sure. Thank you so much, Kai, and also, guys, thank you so much for being watching. And in the next few days, also follow Soccer Hub, and you can see there also some information about Next Level Soccer, and then we'll be in touch. So see you soon. Take care.
Thanks, guys.
Thank
See
you.
you soon.
Thanks. See you soon. Bye.